What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having themselves an awesome, awesome end of your weekend. Soon to be happy Monday, but it is still Sunday. So, Sunday fun day and all that kind of good stuff, right? So, what are we up to this evening? Well, we are doing a little bit of some data logging. Get this AC turned down. Sounds like we're in a wind tunnel over here. Anyway, doing some data logging on the car this evening. Hope y'all can see me. Doing a little bit of a change of venue for once. Actually going to do an in the car Mopar chat live. Thought that'd be kind of fun, kind of mix it up a little bit. So what are we up to? Well, a few things. So tonight, taking the car out and I'm basically validating some shift points, validating cat over temp, basically just kind of giving the car a solid once over, so to speak, giving it a kind of a clean bill of health. One of the funny things about the Hellcats, doesn't matter what platform it is, but pretty much any car that you're working on or what have you, there's always some little weird idiosyncrasies about them. You want to make sure that the data that you're getting is good, that it's no issues, so to speak. So that's really what I'm up to tonight. And again, not trying to go for 2 hours this evening, obviously. Mainly just bringing you guys along for the ride as I am going through and validating some of this data on the car. Now, a couple of things again that I'm looking at. One is obviously the cat over temp. Catalytic converter temperature is kind of a big deal. When you start to get to the end of the drag strip, what ends up happening is your cats start getting hot, car sees cat over temp, starts throwing fuel at it. And it's always interesting to me to see where the car starts to go into cat over temp. Now, strangely enough, the car will really start to go into cat over temp if you're hitting the on-ramp, off-ramp scene, so to speak. A lot of freeway pulls you're already sitting at, and this is just me rattling off data that I've seen, you're already sitting at about 1,300 degrees, 1,200 degrees just cruising down the road. So you're already close to that 1,750 degree threshold. Really, it's more like 1,690, but it gives you a little bit of leeway before it really starts throwing the fuel at it. So anyway, I'm monitoring that. I'm also taking a look at fuel trims. What's the injector duty cycle looking like? Am I on the verge, when this thing does go into cat over temp, how deep into an injector duty cycle does it go? So basically that is what I'm up to in a nutshell. Let me see if I can figure out who is all in here. Rift is in, Keenan's in, Mopar's is in, I like it. Rift's saying him and Multi's going to keep it safe, man. I'll tell you what, I appreciate that. Yeah, last time out was fairly interesting to say the least. So, at any rate, sitting here sampling right now. Other thing is I'm validating shift points. It's another big deal with these things. So, not really sure how much temperature I've got into this thing just yet. Hang on just a second. Let me get down here. Oh, goodness. Blew right past it. So, also, like I was saying, validating shift points, kind of a big deal. Making sure that the car is liking the shift points and everything that I'm basically giving it. Right now, the car seems to respond, 62, 62 and a half. That's pretty much where it's liking it. I've been playing with that a little bit. Again, not tuning this on the dyno. This is all straight street tuning. And the funny thing is that you really can't, back into the transmission tuning thing. It's very difficult to tune a transmission on the street for your 1, 2, and 2, 3, or 1, 2, 1, 2, and 2, 3 shift. 3, 4 is okay, because typically in a street car, and I say street car, something that's not crazy modified, it's going to be a lot easier on that 3, 4, and 4, 5, basically because you're just not blowing the tires off the rims. But on the 1.2 and the 2.3 is definitely tough. And so the interesting, I guess you could say, the technique or whatever you want to call it with it is just this real slow creep in, just a throttle sweep, really not even getting to wide open throttle until the very end of second gear. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to force it to hook as much as I possibly can on the street. Challenge to do. I mean, you figure you've got a lot of power on tap. Even with a stock Hellcat on a drag radial, it's going to be tough to do. And the idea behind all of this tuning, again, is just to validate those actual shift points. So again, we are just sampling along right now. Basically, I'm also watching for short-term fuel trims, making sure we don't have any exhaust leaks, anything goofy like that. That's another thing that you run into quite a bit when you start messing with stuff. So go ahead. This is just partial throttle stuff. This isn't anything really all that major. Really not concerned about anything at this point with the car because I'm still running so many stock values that unless I'm really pouring the coal to it and I'm deep into an RPM range that the car normally wouldn't see stock, it's really not going to matter too much. And it's stock up to that point, so it really doesn't matter. So without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and do a watt hit from about 68 miles an hour, 69 miles an hour. Go ahead and validate a couple of shift points. So we're watt now. Let it go through the shifts. So that's your 3, 4, 5. We're going to roll out of the throttle, apply the brakes, hit our space bar, and then I can go through the process of taking a look at everything. And really on that roll, everything looks good. One of the issues I was running into was on a kickdown downshift, watt kickdown downshift. So this car wouldn't be my car unless it did stuff like this. Every single car that I've ever owned that I've tuned myself, or even when Alex tuned Shalandra, there was always some little weird thing in the operating system that would cause havoc. It was something a little bit different. So anyway, getting to it. By the way, very true of my Lightning, especially true of Shalandra, and even a little bit true of this car. The predictive shift algorithm is a little bit, what's the best way I can put it in this car? A little bit nanny-ish in this car. And what I mean by that is that it thinks that the acceleration rate is a little bit higher, I think, than what it really is. And again, it's just part of getting into that tune and, you know, checking out what really is going on there. But what it was doing is it was thinking it was going to hit a rev limit that there's no way the car could hit a rev limit at this power level, especially with the way I have everything set. And so what it was doing is it was freaking out and it was chopping throttle, or it was basically it was throttle source transmission. And I'm going, basically what it's saying is that it thought that I was going to hit a transmission rev limit. Obviously there wouldn't be a torque limit situation with this car the way it sits now, so it was all rev limit. So I had to go back, chase down a bunch of rev limits and kind of set them a little bit higher than I should really have to. And basically what I'm doing is making sure that none of that was actually applying. You will get a throttle source trans on the downshift. Okay, it's just on the shift itself. You don't want to see that. What's happening, what it'll do is it'll kill the injectors and kills timing. And basically what it's doing is it'll nose over and then come back, which is that little yip in the shift, that one we like to talk about. So at any rate, data looks good. Sorry, I'm over here. I've got my trusty new computer, by the way. I had to get a new computer because we had some technical difficulties. If you want to be polite about it, the old computer. But yeah, no, everything looks good. And yes, guys, before you guys start asking me a bunch of questions about torque management, I am running every last ounce of torque management in this car. All stock values, not trying to get away with anything with these things. So we are going to do, like what I was talking about before, we're going to do a dig. And then what I'll do is I'll get to a stopping point, and I'll try to get to some of y'all if y'all have some questions, comments, or anything else like that. I know right now I'm just kind of rambling on, but it's a little bit difficult to conduct science while we are, you know, while we're driving these monster machines here. All right, so we're going to bring it to a full halt. Load it slightly, roll into the throttle very loosely, don't let it haze. Second gear, what? There's your 2-3 and going to 3-4. We're going to carry the run into the 4-5, carry it about that long. Slowly roll out the throttle, apply your brakes, hit your space bar, and science. So this also serves a couple of things. One is driving the car, just getting seat time in the car. Good. 1 degrees right now. Density altitude's probably 2,300. So that will give you an idea as far as 5. Well, let me get my SRT pages up and I'll go through what that extremely truncated run would have been. Bear with me just a second, guys. It's booting up right now. Anyway, when 11.5, the dashboard doesn't give you a mile an hour or anything like that. 0 to 60 ought to be pretty funny. 8th mile was a 7.7. 0 to 100 was a 7.5. 0 to 60, 3.8 seconds. Again, we're not trying to, you know, make a pass. We were trying to get solid data for the purposes of validating shift points here. But in case you wanted to know, that's what it was. So going down the most current timer, this is fairly accurate. Again, 0 to 60, 3.8, 0 to 100, 7.5. 8th mile at 7.7. I'm sorry, yeah, 8th mile at 7.7 at 100 miles an hour, which is adorable. Quarter mile, 11.5 at 125 is probably more like 123. And again, that's just slow application. What I'm doing is I'm feeling the chassis. When I'm doing those, I'm trying to make sure I'm not letting the tires haze at all. And again, it's more challenging than you might think. So, but more fun than I'll ever let on, by the way. But let's see. It looks like everything looked good. I'm also looking at knock retard. What's good about this, very similar to stock values for the knock retard. I like to keep it safe. We're running on 93 octane, so I'm not trying to deviate too much from that. That set of stock values and knock retard throughout the entire pass. I'm just getting a little bit of noise out of it. It's not uncommon on these things to see 1 or 2 degrees of short-term knock retard. It'll throw it, then it immediately yanks it back. That's just noise. It's false knock, and that's okay. You know, this is not a race car. This is not a race effort. I haven't seen over 1 yet. We're at max load on this in 4th gear. Looks like it was making about close to almost, well, about 10 pounds of boost, a little over almost 11 pounds of boost, and nothing. Let's see. By the way, Mopar, you're in, brother. KPA was 176, basically at peak. I'm sorry, 180 at peak, but that's on the shift. 175 throughout. Basically, 100 KPA is normally your normal. And it's yeah, I mean it's and fuel trims look great. Riching it up a little bit on the back end of the pull. I'm still running stock values for let's see, I'm still running the stock values across the board as long as with the adders themselves. So let's see. So all adders apply, no adders have been removed. Basically, it's just a bunch of stock values. Let's go ahead and I'm going to get to a spot where I can pull over and then we can hang out for just a sec here. Bear with me, guys. Hang on just a second. Love the sound of this thing. It brings a smile to my face every single time. It is humid too. I tell you what, one thing we don't have any shortage of down here in Southeast Texas is humidity. All right. boy over here smoking weed in the back of his truck at the gas station. Looks like an old, wish y'all could see this. Damn it. Anyway, it looks like an old rice farmer. That's funny. All right, so let me get in here real quick, see all we got going on. Let's see. Junior's checking in and saying, howdy, B. Mason, howdy. Frank is saying, Plano, Texas. He used to live near Plano. Riv's saying, so B, is it normal for my Hellcat to jump to 18 on the air-fuel ratio every time I lift off the gas? You better believe it's normal. Multiple. That's basically you're going to deceleration fuel cutoff is what you're looking at. So yeah, don't sweat that a bit, brother. It's perfectly normal. Car's doing what it's supposed to. Mopar is saying 1 2 2 3 traction is an issue. Yes, sir, it is. Steve was checking in saying nice live chat setup. Thank you, bro. Riv saying I guess it would not be good for him to read while he's driving. Yep, can't do that. What are your thoughts on modded 2020 GT500, if any, coming out of Junior, man? Let's see if that transmission will hold together first. Dr. Diff checking in saying, what up, B? What up? Dr. Diff said, I need one of those blue wrenches. Hang on, let's see if I can do that here. I'll figure out a way to do it. Riv saying, I definitely want my Hellcat to have the transmission tuned, although it does a good job in track mode. You'll actually get better results in sport mode, brother. Riff saying HP tuners, right, B? Yes, sir, it is. By the way, this is what we're up to, just so y'all can see it. Oh, wait, I got to save this. Hang on just a second. In the way that I save mine, everybody's got their own way to save. I will lead in with the date, so I'll say 7/7. I know that it is, I know what changes I've made, so I'll go in and say OSS up 10, and then I'll give the condition of it. I'll say dig, and I know what I'm doing with that, and then 1. If I'm doing something at the track, then I'll designate something I'm doing at the drag strip. So let's see. Oh, here we go. Let's see. Dr. Diff saying, what's your RPM shift point? Can you think the PCM yet? I can't give away everything, brother, but I can tell you she likes 6250 pretty good. Shawnee's saying, hi, Brian, how's it going tonight? It's going good. Having fun tonight. Let's see. Riv saying, I heard if you put it into paddle shift mode and then just let it shift on its own, it shifts at a higher RPM. Kind of true. But you can... SRT Durango just got through tearing ass. That's pretty fun. But you can potentially run into a predictive shift with that setup. So it does make sense. I've seen them do it, but I am doing things a little bit differently with mine. Not messing with the paddles at all, just tuning everything straight through the computer. Joe's saying, hello, how's it going? It's going great, Joseph. So Riv saying, so I'll get better results in sport mode? Yes. Dr. Diff saying, yep, save. Yeah, and the reason why is because track mode is great, but it has a lot of torque management on the shifts. Sport mode, let me rephrase that. You will notice the car, kind of jerky a little bit. If you do a data log, the shift timing is quicker, but I have always had better results. Without starting, I can already feel myself getting overly technical here. You'll have much better results if you run it down the track in sport. We were just in sport mode, by the way. Let's see. Donald Power saying, hello, Mr. Mason. What's up, Donald? Jefferson saying, where are the music? The music is coming from right underneath the hood of my Challenger, so it's about 4 feet in front of me. Dr. Diff, I've been having really high temperatures and not sure why. IAT, ECT oil temp, so it's got to be just the heat. Yeah, it's real hot. It's nothing for this thing to spool up oil temp pretty quickly. Riff saying, so I want to go to the drag strip. Should I put it in sport mode? Yes, absolutely. Leave it in sport, brother. Put your suspension in street mode. Christian's asking, any chance of doing another Mopar chat with a main topic? That GT500 rant was awesome. Yeah, there could be some more coming. I would like to, and I will probably dial one up here pretty soon on the GT500, considering the pricing has been released. So we're going to do another GT500. I will be probably again in rare form with that, although with a little bit of a twist. Not for nothing, but the pricing looks good. The issue is mainly going to be that dealer markup. Joseph's asking, how many passes have you done today? Counting this morning. Well, no. Today, I've only done a handful. Over the last 2 days, though, probably 20 odd pulls, I guess. I'd have to go back and look at the data. Probably close to 20, 22, 24. Fatal Warlock saying Slayer. Hell yeah, man. Rift 33, is it true that the stock air filter is better than the K&N drop-in? It is far better. Stock K&N will flow about 750 CFM. The stock Hellcat flows about 1100, both of them clean. Sean E is asking, is the stock Hellcat tuned for 91 octane or 93? The answer to that is yes. It is tuned for 93 octane, and then it rides the knock sensors. By the way, my fans just went into high mode, and you can hear this thing in the background. That's the fans. So that's kind of the same way some GMs run. It's also the same way that the Demon runs in the high octane mode. Symphonics asking, so my 2008 C6 has 4 cats, 2 on headers, and 2 on X-pipe. Does the law only require 2 cats? And if I replace X-pipe with no cats, am I still legal and would throw any codes? If you remove the cats, you will throw codes. Is it still legal? Technically, the jargon on that basically reads, if you're not running stock cats, you're not exactly legal. So that'll give you an idea as far as what is and what isn't considered legal in that respect. Most of the time, nobody's really going to care, though. Molten Mopar has put a thermostat in. Yes, right now it's got a 180 in it. I was going to try to run a 160 earlier, and especially some of the 15s have an issue with the 160. Christian saying, saw the Camaro may be getting axed. No surprise, to be honest. Complete lack of marketing, stale power numbers, and a design lacking inspiration. Sorry, Chevy Pans. Chevy Pans. What is that? A little bit of a Freudian slip. That is another one where I will be doing a live chat that is centered around a specific topic. Again, kind of letting the cat out of the bag, but we've got GT500 now that the pricing has been released. We'll do a short one on that, and then as we get more information on the Camaro, there will be one on the Camaro. I have a lot of thoughts on that Camaro going away. I think that it's a bit of a tragedy, actually, that they never really seem to get it right. So, Fatal Warlock saying, Pure Leaf Tea is good as hell. Yeah, it is. Hey, Riff, thank you very much. Saying, so I guess I'm going back to the stock filter over the K&N. Thanks for the info. Absolutely. And by the way, stay the hell away from any of the dry filters. I mean, you could go with green, but only use those at the drag strip. In my opinion, the filtration in those is just not safe for street use, but absolutely fine for track use. But yeah, don't worry about it. Look, we've had cars on the dyno. This is no joke. We've had cars on the dyno that made little over 800 horsepower with the stock filter, pulled the filter and it made 6 horsepower different. So, I mean, you can say, well, that was heat or that was this. Look, I'm just telling you what I've seen, and the stock filter does really well. Obviously, you're going to hit a limit with what the stock filter can flow, and from there, you're going to probably want to stick with a green filter, but the reality is that the stock filter does pretty good. So, let's see. Oh, and also kind of playing around with how the fans are working. This thing will just sit here and idle for a while without even, you don't even notice it, even nudge a number. And this is chilling with the AC on. Dr. Div saying, one in on Jesse and my private track rental coming up in the next month or so at Evendale. Oh, Will be a bit of money, but will be worth it. We have 2 with 2 new engines just testing. Well, let me know. Tracks out. I like it. Keep me in the loop, brother. Shawnee's saying it's better if the Camaro stays around for competition to push Dodge and Ford. Rumors of an electric Hellcat also. That would actually be pretty cool. ECAT. The Camaro, look, if the Camaro sticks around, it's got to beat both the Dodge and the Ford at the things that the Dodge and the Ford are good at. That is the only way that car can remain relevant. The problem is that it fails on both of those levels. It doesn't drive as well, cruise around as the Dodge, and it doesn't pull on the big end the way that a Mustang does, or is as flickable or is as drivable as the Mustang is. So it's literally failing at being the meat of this, pony car sandwich, with, Ford and Dodge being the bookends here, so to speak. Until they get that down, they've got to understand that they are playing a game that is very difficult to win. And here's the thing, they have to beat both, because if you beat the Challenger but you still lose to the Ford, you've got a smaller car that's only doing what it's supposed to do. It literally cannot win unless it beats it roundly on both of them at both of them what they do best. Sorry. Dr. Siv saying, no filter here, over 25,000 miles. Yeah, a little bit different situation there, brother. Rip 33 saying, what do you think about the leg maker intake or something like it? Is it worth it on a stock Hellcat? No. Multiple Mopars, damn, thank you much. Saying, just FYI, I went back to 180 thermostat doing the winter heating. Yep, that's an issue. We need an electric thermostat. That's tunable. That would be awesome. But yeah, you're right. That was the other side of it, was some winter, potential winter issues that I know have come up. I'm pretty sure I can tune around them though. That's not a big deal. Symphonic saying, I honestly don't think the Camaro is going anywhere. Some random wrote an article full of speculation. The internet took it and ran with it. Yeah, that's why I was saying, if it is going away. But the thing is, this isn't the first rumor to come up. But I don't know. I really haven't been keeping up with it, but I was kind of doubting that it did. But, it's fun to speculate. If there's not a Camaro, would we miss it? That's really more to the point, right? I mean, it's kind of the middle kid. And, the middle kid's the one that's starved for attention. That's the one that always ends up going crazy. And so that's kind of where the Camaro is. You can almost feel the freak out coming. But what Chevrolet needs to do with the Camaro is they need to make it appealing to everybody, make it easy for everybody to drive. No, you don't have to be, 6'3" to be able to see out the windows, but yet still be completely cramped up like you're in a clown car. It needs to be better at everything that it does, and it needs to be the best at the performance things that it does, or else it will never get any real play. The Challenger and the Charger are both way too good at what they do in terms of being a, just a great street cruiser. And the Mustang is fantastic at being an all-around just fun car that does everything great, and it pulls like a monster on the big end. But yeah, thank you very much, Molten Mopars. I appreciate that. And I agree with you 100%. It'd be great if we had something that was tunable with that. And then Rift, hold on, I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody. Oh, Chris saying, I agree. I saw the 2010 Camaro concept as a kid. My jaw dropped. GM could currently have a very special car if they built upon it. The ZL1 isn't bad, but the way they've treated the SS is shameful. I will agree with that. What is the deal with the way that car is geared anyway? Stupidity is thick within the engineering department of GM with that setup, man. I just don't get it. Why not even, or if nothing else, copo the thing out. Make the thing, you've got to set yourself aside. You've got to do something different than what you're doing, GM, or you'll never be able to compete. Oh, Mopar is saying Chevy's factory tunes are straight pitiful. At least the Z06 was. No kidding, right? yeah, there's actually a lot. The thing with the GM is that there is a lot left to gather in terms of power, drivability, everything else of those cars. But there's still some hardware issues. Number one, the gearing, and number two, I just don't get just how nannied up those cars always seem to feel to me. Ripped is saying, what about a 180 thermostat on a stock Hellcat? Works great, especially on the freeway. Let's see. So Fox saying the gears on the A8 and A10 SS, it's fun over at 130. That's why the GTs pull hard on the Camaro SS is up top. Yeah, well, I'll tell you this, they also pull pretty hard on them down low too. The Chevy just needs more gear. Poacher saying Chevy needs to retro the Camaro to look more like the Gen 1 because right now it's ugly as sin and looks like it tries to fit somewhere in between the sports car and a muscle car. Christian saying I second that. You know, as far as that goes, here we're gonna get some driving around here. As far as all that goes, look, I get moving away from the retro look. Now, there's some cars that pull it off really well. Obviously, the Challenger does well. It's still modern looking. I like the way that they did that. Obviously, the Challenger does retro the best. Another car that is amazing at the retro styling, Porsche 911. I mean, that car hasn't changed since, 1850 or whatever the freaking thing was released. So anyway, sitting here letting the car idle for a little bit, get this thing out, get some air flowing around it. But no, you're right. I mean, the thing, but if they were going to do it, they would need to do it right. Let me rephrase what I was saying. Now then, what I like about the Camaro and what I would like them to keep doing is keep the thing modern, let it have its own style, let it have its own identity. I think a lot of the issues that you run into with the retro styling is you can almost alienate a certain demographic, the younger demographic. So we're going to do a real quick hit. Another one from roughly 66 miles an hour going what? In 3, 2, 1, sampling is in effect. We're going to go ahead and hit it. 3 to 4. 5. Pulling out of the throttle. Hitting our space bar. Data looks good. And again, getting back into the tuning of this car, one of the issues that I ran into again was just hitting some phantom almost rev limiters, and I mean I was chasing tables and stuff. I hate it when I do that. I was chasing tables all over the place with this car, trying to figure out where I was in the whole where do I need to raise a limiter, what do I feel comfortable with, things like that. One of the things you got to be very careful with when you're messing with transmission tuning, and this is why another reason why you've got to have a prepared surface, have a drag strip that you're going to be making these changes on. One of the problems is if you get a little froggy in first gear, and that's another reason why I'm kind of careful with it in first gear. By the way, I am mowing through just a school of bugs. What do you call them? A swarm? A gaggle? I don't know. Anyway, I am taking out freaking bugs left and right out here. This is going to be a treat cleaning this thing up. But one of the things you got to worry about is you don't want your RPM limits to be set way too high. One of the problems is that you can blow right past a rev limiter if your acceleration rate is really that high. And so that's another reason why, aside from wanting to get solid data, that is one of the things that will happen when you are messing with the transmission tune. You're messing with some parameters that you're not going to hurt anything typically, and you're not going to be irresponsible with what you're doing with your rev limiters, provided that you're not trying to tune around a yip that's due to gearing and a lot of power and things like that. In those cases, man, you got to do what you got to do to make the thing shift. There's just no way to get around those types of scenarios, and you can fix it with the understanding that look, in street mode, let's run another tune, or let's run a different tune, and keep the thing a little bit. By the way, the beverage, we are going with sugar, but we got a little bit of lemon in there. Just give it a little bit of that, a little bit of tart that I like. A little bit of that twang. All right. So we are going to name our latest data log. And then we will move forward with our final dig run. So we're going to log file, save log file as, and we know that it is 77 OSS. I'm just going to keep that one short because we are just about done with this tune. OSS roll 2. Boom. No problem. All right, so last dig run, kind of walk you through the process real quick. And again, this is just kind of bringing you guys into a little bit of behind the scenes stuff, stuff that you got to do when you're putting a tune together. So we're going to bring a car to a full complete stop, load it slightly, tip into the throttle, try to walk second, 2, 3, shift up pretty good, 3, 4, let it roll out to the 4, 5. We're going to slowly roll off the throttle, hit our space bar, and apply the brakes gently. Data looks sharp. I like it. We have ourselves a happy Hemi and a very happy HP90. Fun stuff. Let's see what we got going on in here. Now we got some Camaro chat. So that's basically how that works. You've got to put them under heavy load, and this is also just another thing for you guys that may be getting your vehicle tuned. You're going to get a transmission tune or what have you. The way that I try to explain tuning and this type of testing, and by the way, this is no different than anything that I did with anybody else's car when we started doing transmission tuning or load validation, anything like that. And again, multiple Mopars, Dr. Diff, you guys know exactly where I'm going to be coming with this. So I'm doing no different than anything else I've done with any other car, my own cars included. When I'm doing this stuff, I may as well be wearing a lab coat. And all I'm doing is looking at data, collecting data points, and using those data points to fine tune the tune. It's not that I'm not having fun, it is, but it's also stressful because I'm making a pass, I'm wide open, I am putting the vehicle under heavy load for an extended period of time. There's a lot of things that can go weird and a lot of things that can happen, and it's stressful for the guy tuning it. Now, a lot of times you'll get owners of cars that get real skittish about other people driving their cars. They don't want them running their cars hard. They think that they're just going to go out and abuse them and basically just abuse the privilege apparently of driving that car. And the way I try to explain it is, look, man, it's kind of like, if your girlfriend or wife or significant other is going to the gynecologist. Look, man, that doctor's seen him look every size, shape, smell, everything, dude. I'm telling you, ain't nothing gonna impress you and ain't nothing gonna freak you out. That's basically where I am with these cars or anything that I'm helping out with or working on or whatever. It's all the same to me, man. And when I explain that to a customer, it would typically take the edge off, help to break the ice a little bit, let them know, look, we'll give it back to you better than you gave it to us. And if something does go haywire, this is the procedure. This is exactly what goes into this. And if something fails throughout the process, it's mechanical failure typically, and that's just something that would have happened anyway. That's what waivers are for. But the reality is that, if the data's looking good and everything that you're collecting is within normal parameters for the modifications or what you're doing to the vehicle, then, it's all the same. But anyway, just kind of an aside, a little bit of a sidebar there. Typically, it's just kind of funny. I'm doing this and I will actually forget that it's my car. It's just kind of weird like that. I mean, you don't really think of it. I mean, I'm literally here just collecting data the same way I would always collect data on anything else. So again, not that I'm, any tuning guru or anything like that. It's just when I would be sent out to collect data on cars, it never really mattered. Like I say, they're all the same to me. Even my own are all the same. And it doesn't matter what car it is. Doesn't matter if they're fast, slow, or whatever. They're all the same to me, and it's all fun to me. And that's the other thing. To me, it's still a lot of fun too. A lot of guys will lose that sense of fun with this stuff. It's always stressful, but it can also be fun too. And I still do enjoy it quite a bit. It's one of the reasons why I'm doing this as well. This is kind of the normal progression of how any owner would basically go about modifying their cars or what have you. And that's that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the tuning thing. But the other ones, I just really enjoy it. I just have a lot of fun with it, and transmission tuning especially. Hang on just a second here. We're going to name our data log. That will be 77 OSS Dig 2. I'm giving some things away here with these names, by the way, guys. Little Easter egg for you. So anyway, let's take a look at the data. Injector duty cycle. See if I can find a high spot for you. That's about 75%. Let's see. Had a little bit of a spike up to close to 80. Let's take a look. It might have just started going into cat over temp. Nope, it was just creeping into it, but not quite there yet. Ooh, yes. Shift points look nice. Yes, thank you. And be doing again, stock values, knock retard, practically non-existent. Total timing without knock retard, typical stock values with all the adders hovering around 17. It could probably stand to have the knock sensors numbed a little bit more. Looks like I'm getting a little bit of noise. But again, I'm actually running a little bit safer tune than stock. A little bit richer than stock, actually. So far, so good. Okay, let's see where we're at here. Let's get some air conditioning, some conditioned air in here because it's boiling hot. Riff said, I really don't like the Camaro as a muscle car anymore. Not saying it's not a good car, it just definitely does its job well. In its own environment, it's good, but the echo chamber is strong with that car. Symphonic saying Z28. Z28 is a real nice car. Chris is saying, I thought the 22 Camaro did a solid job at a new take on the retro look. I'll agree with that, but it's almost as if they're too afraid to try something new. It looks like a blob. Yeah, I'll tell you this, man. I love me some Gen 5. It's the LT setup that I'm just not a big fan of. I'm just not a big direct injection guy. But not to say you can't get power out of them, you can. It's just, I like the simplicity. That's what Chevrolet has started to forget. Chevrolet, their strength has always been in their simplicity, modability, overall strong performance, typically top of the mountaintop, and they're not that anymore. Gen 5, fifth gen Camaro is actually a killer car. Riff saying, bug killer, I'm calling PETA. Right on, man. Riff saying, do you think a dyno tune is better than a street tune or vice versa? I would think street would be better. Yeah, no. Actually, if you're on a loaded Mustang dyno, that is far superior than a street tune because you can actually overload the car on a Mustang dyno. Basically, tell the dyno you don't want it to spin past 3,500 RPM, and it doesn't matter how much throttle you give it when you're doing a load test. That's actually kind of creepy because you can be wide open throttle, doesn't matter. It will not go above 3,500 RPM. So there are things you can do on a dyno that are far and away better than a street tune. Symphonic saying, a little peek at the C8 rear end. I've seen the C8 and I like it. Steven's saying, can you make another pass? I could definitely hear the gear shifting. Yes, you can. Possibly one more, depends. I'm going to go through this data. Everything looks good though. Riv's saying girlfriend going to the gynecologist, he likes it. Johnny's saying stock for stock, same options. How much faster is a red eye than a Hellcat? Same traction. You have to pull the right red eye, but you have to give the red eye the option to have a 309 gear, and you've got to put them both on a drag pack. Real talk, guys, if I had a base model red eye with a 309 gear, it would probably be at least 0.3 quicker than a Hellcat, if not 0.4 with that gear. Let's see. And by the way, you might think that that's a little bit of a low estimate, but once you start getting into power levels of 700, 800, whatever the number is, it takes more than just 100 horsepower to get a full second out of the car. From just experience, I can tell you that it's really difficult to drag another full second out of that car. Although I will say this: once temperatures drop, you might see it spread out to about half a second. But they are quicker. That's the way it is, and they should be. I mean, they cost more. There's more going on with that car also. Riv 33 saying, I am losing. I got sense of speed I got when I Hellcat, but the sound of the car always brings me joy. Absolutely. Christian saying, man, the car sounds sweet. Can't wait to be out of school and get one of my own. That supercharger one is intoxicating. Yes, sir, it is. Let's see. Hopeless, never getting out, but Victor, I don't know what that means. Okay, so let's see. I like where you're going with that, Flea. Let's see. Riff 33, I still have my C5 Corvette with trick flatheads and a comp cam. Very good track car. Probably, unmistakably, one of the best track cars. 8833 saying, best power mods for a 97 Cobra. Tune and 430 gears. Be the way I would go with that. Riff 33 saying, thumbs up, y'all. Riff 33 is asking, does the red eye have the Demon suspension? No, it does not. Has the Hellcat suspension. Christian McVeigh, best brand for Hellcat headers, or doesn't really matter? Don't worry about it. Don't even waste your time with them. And the only reason why I say that is, look, and I always give this example, it's the tale of two Hellcats. You guys know Racer X. His Hellcat versus another guy's name was Man, by the way, has the absolute coolest just the way the guy's voice sounded, his dialect. He's from Mexico City. Anyway, sorry, words are hard right now. His car with 2-inch long tubes versus Paul's car with a 309 gear, which, by the way, will hurt dyno numbers, but those two cars are identical. I think Manuel's car made I don't know 15 horsepower more, and red 15 more. Accent was the word I was looking for, by the way. He'd call me up, Brian, you have to tell me, how is my car? And I'd say, oh man, well, it's going good, man. We're just trying to get it right. That is beautiful. I love that car. Anyway, I love listening to this guy talk. If this guy could if the guy, it was like Morgan Freeman had to go, if he could read the freaking dictionary, and it would sound good. at any rate, no good reason to put headers on the car. By the way, you guys got to remember, we're still running stock catalytic converters on Revlon. And the reason why, this has come up a lot, so I wanted to answer this question too while, we're talking about tuning and while we're talking about all this other stuff. Why am I still running cats on this thing? Well, for a couple reasons. First reason, it's legal. I mean, that's kind of the big reason, right? The second reason is so far at this power level, there hasn't been anything that will convince me that taking cats off of the car will make the car go any quicker. We've already done the experiment with Robert's car, where we took his car to the drag strip, the car tuned with no cats on it. Pulled the cats off the very next week, took it back to the drag strip, conditions were identical. The car did not change anything about how it got down the drag strip, whether it was mile an hour ET, 60 foot, 8th mile, 1,000 foot mark, it did not matter. That thing went down the drag strip the exact same way it did with no cats. With only two exceptions, or only two differences with the car went down the track. One, it was quieter, which, whatever with that. And two, by his own, way of putting it, the car just felt better all the way around. Fine. So that's two strikes against the cats coming off the car from a performance standpoint. One big strike about the cats coming off the car from a legality standpoint. There are no aftermarket cats that flow better than the stock cats. We can talk about the 200 cell metal substrate catalytic converters, but there's no reason to put high flow cats on the car unless you're worried about, trying to tune out that cat over temp. And what I'm doing with mine is I'm just kind of doing a bit of a workaround with that. That's another reason why I'm checking data. So I'm probably going to bring those values back down a little bit, make it a little bit more catalytic converter friendly, but realistically, it's not hitting those numbers for very long, and I'm not too concerned with, the variance in temperature. If it's like 100 degrees, I'm not really too worried about that. You start looking at catalytic converter temperatures, and it'll get as high as 1850 in some cases. It really starts throwing the extra fuel at it to chill them out. Like I say, I'm a grand whopping 100 or so degrees higher than that. So not much of a big deal there. All right, so we're gonna do the last of the dig runs. Always try to go for 3. Let the car be in its normal natural environment. Oil temperature is 194 degrees, coolant is 185. So we're talking street conditions, not track conditions, but street conditions where we have real temperature in the thing, not trying to cheat anything, not doing anything like that. So the stuff, not really cheating, it's just the game that we play. So we are going through the procedure again, bring the car to a full and complete stop, load it slightly, tip into the throttle, load it in a second, go wide open throttle. There's your 2, 3, 3, 4, 5. Slowly right out of the throttle, slowly apply the brakes, hit our space bar. Take a quick glance, everything looks exactly right for what I'm looking for, and that wraps it up on a transmission tune for this car for now. Again, I can't do anything about that 1-2 shift, and even the 2-3 is a little bit suspect, only because it's not the number 2, the gear 2 is just not getting hit very hard. So because of that, you can make the argument that predictive shift is getting hit as hard as it normally could, but we're playing with what we've got now. And by the way, I've got half the gas car, but we are able to go watt at second gear. And just to give you some vitals on how the car is sitting right now, 35, 36 psi up front, 33s in the rear. Intercoolant, these are flipped usually, but intercooler temps 93, boost well under vacuum now, wasn't paying attention to that. Air fuel stock That's all. Don't worry about that. If you've got a Hellcat, you know that the air fuel reads 6% too rich. At cruise at about 65 miles an hour, it's using about 20 horsepower and 75 pound-feet of torque. Intake air temp of 120. Battery voltage is at 13.9. And we'll probably need to change oil here pretty soon. Oil pressure at cruise 63 psi, oil temp of 97, 99 degrees. So anyway, and trans temp at 203 after the pass. So that is kind of in a nutshell, again, bringing you guys behind the scenes a little bit. Stuff that you got to do when you're tuning a car, and some of the procedures, some of the things that I'm looking for. Again, looking at fuel trim, looking at fuel duty cycle, looking for knock, things like that. Those are the key things that I'm looking for. And on that run, let's take a look at something real quick, just for grins. Do as I say, not as I do. Don't do this while you're driving. Pretty typical Hemi stuff. These knock sensors. Never goes above 2. God, it's just noise. The thing is, though, is I am leaving them in place in terms of voltage. A lot of times, like if you go with long tubes, you've got to ramp up your knock sensor voltage quite a bit, significant amount, by the way. And that's how I know the knock is false. More than likely false anyway. 1, 2. On the 2, 3, we got a pretty big bump, but I mean, it immediately pulls it, and we're back in the mix. It's all false knock. So again, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, I can pull some more voltage out of the knock sensors. However, I don't feel like that's 100% necessary. Again, we're running basically stock voltage, and we're not really turning the thing to 7,000 RPM or anything like that. So there's not a lot of extra noise really to speak of. All we're doing is helping to augment a little bit of that stock tune to get you a little bit more performance at the drag strip and on the street. If you need that emergency reserve power, it is absolutely going to be there. We'll have bagfuls of it. All right, so let's get to a spot where I can hang out with you guys again and answer some questions or visit with you guys on your comments. Bear with me just one moment, please. And we're going to need to name our tune and then go ahead and save it. So, So we're going to go to log file, save file as 77. OSS dig 3. Sweet. All right, so what do we got going on here, folks? Already talked about the headers. I'm saying Revlon sounded sweet there, Professor. Thank you very much. Shawnee, Cook's headers are nice. May not be worth the money. If I'm putting headers on anything, it's going to be a set of Cook's 2-inch on the Hellcat. Riff saying the Hellcat has pretty good headers in stock form from what I've seen. They're pretty good. It makes you wonder why they didn't run 1 7/8 as opposed to the stock 1 3/4 inch. I know JBA, I think, has come out with those headers, though. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hooker came out with a set of 1 7/8 inch shorties that are supposed to be pretty good. Chris saying, I've heard some stainless works long tubes versus stock, and it sounded nice and throaty. Hey, if you like the sound, go for it, man. That's part of the experience. See, Ripped singing out with him. Poser saying that he got his LMI just for the supercharger one and no other reason. Bonus why I like the way it looks. You know, I tell you what, that's one of the things I've told guys when it comes to Hellcats. the reality is that no, you're not going to pick up any power in the real world at the drag strip or on the street or whatever. You're not going to pick up power with no matter what cold air, hot air kit you want to get. But it adds to the theater of driving the car. You don't really lose anything. At least you don't lose anything really worth talking about, but you do get the noise. And guys, I got to tell you, I'm totally understanding. I mean, dude, I've even thought about throwing the cheapest hot air whatever kit on this car just for the noise of it. The sound is awesome. Riff saying, I saw a stage 1 kit for my Hellcat would only add 50 horsepower but cost $1,300. Would I really get that performance wise, if any? No, you wouldn't. And that's the other thing, man. You guys, okay, so one of the things that's been driving me nuts, we'll be wrapping this up here pretty soon, guys, too. One of the things that's been absolutely driving me nuts has been, and it's always been, some of these claims by the manufacturers about how much power their widget is going to make for your car. And it's always this up to number or what have you. And you would see these magazine articles where, these things were, supposedly making all this extra power. Throw headers on your Hellcat for 50 horsepower, whatever the case is. Look, I got news for you. If that were the case, you'd see long tube headers or whatever exhaust on every single Hellcat that was running around out there that are running quick. And there are plenty of 9-second cars that are running stock manifolds. So you got to take everything that you read with that stuff with a grain of salt. I would be more apt, and I would love to run a Lake Maker. If Lake Maker were to send me an intake, I would run it on my car. I would have no problem doing that at all, knowing that I'm doing it for the reason of the sound. But I really have a problem with aftermarket manufacturers quoting power numbers when it's so easy to validate their claims. And I had returned an AFE, what are those things? The AFE, I don't know, Tornado, whatever, not Tornado, what the hell was it? Anyway, returned the AFE, the big box one, returned the Mopar cold air kit. Let me think about this for a minute. AFE, the Mopar, what was the other one? Can't remember. I sold a Lake Maker, but the main reason why is because, they just, you do these things to test claims, and you see them not work, and you can't even call anybody to the carpet on it because they say, oh, well, every car is different. Well, you know what? You're right. Every car is different, but they're not that different. I mean, we're talking a 2% variance one direction or another. And that's a wide variance, and that's being extremely generous by saying what is and what isn't just a function of tolerance stacking. That's really what you're going to be seeing there. So I don't know, man. I've seen that with headers, exhaust, intake, all of that stuff, and very little of it really has anything to do with the real world. It's all marketing. It's all BS. And guys want to believe it. And granted, if there is a margin of a gain, let's say we have to talk about the stuff as far as percentages goes. To get 1% is 7 horsepower basically on one of these cars to the crank. It's about 6 horsepower, just shy of that to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno. You got to pick up a lot of 1% before you're even going to notice the difference in power. And that could just very well be a dyno variance, could be a temperature variance, could be anything along those lines. So there's a lot of ways you can cheat those results as well, which is something that you've really got to watch out for. Again, and the other thing about that too, that modification of cold air intakes, I want to stick to that, or exhaust, or whatever the case is. Do the exhaust for the sound, do the intake for the sound. Don't worry about performance gains. But do it to stay involved with the car, do it to stay involved with the hobby. That is the most important aspect of that. The ability to make the vehicle your own, that's really the key thing to take away when you're talking about those types of modifications. If you go after those modifications trying to pick up power, you're kind of missing the point, and you're going to end up leaving probably after the whole situation is probably going to be leaving with kind of a sour taste in your mouth of the whole experience, especially if you take that vehicle to a dyno. 5.7 does pick up, and so there's always an exception to the rule, and in this case the 5.7 is the exception to that rule. But for the 392s cars and for the Hellcat powered vehicles, you've got to just take this on faith. Amount of gain that you're going to see because the factory did such a good job, and of course intake manifold, things like that. Let you guys just listen to this. That is a quarter throttle, by the way. But the main thing is, I almost lost my train of thought. And by the way, let me just kind of stick to that same idea. We had seen guys that would bring their cars to the shop, and they were expecting these big gains and expecting, the manufacturer says 20 horsepower to the rear wheels, and it's like, okay, well, you're not going to get that. Well, that's what the manufacturer said, and then it would turn into an argument. Okay, well, from the shop's point of view, okay, let me explain to you how this works. Person that's bringing your car to the dyno only for a dyno test, it would almost turn into an argument where the guy would say, oh, well, that's what the manufacturer claimed, and we would almost be on the manufacturer side. You're saying, well, it's up to, and realistically, there's, I don't even know what you would do to get that up to number, aside from cheating the number and running your car real hot with the stock components and then icing it down and then running it with the aftermarket components. It's the only real way you're going to get those up to numbers. And we can do that with the stock components, maybe even drag more power out. But anyway, getting to the point, these guys would leave offended almost that their vehicle just didn't pick up any power, didn't pick up anywhere near the power that they thought that it would. What was funny is a lot of times that would come from guys with cold air kits, which used to drive me nuts, because you would think that they would know this coming into this whole deal, that you're not going to get some obnoxious amount of power out of some bolt-on part. But I don't know, man. People like to want to believe a lot of things, and when you want to believe something and then somebody proves your want to believe thing wrong, it's easy for people to get a little bit butthurt. So anyway, just another day in the life there of what goes on with some of these aftermarket parts. And again, these are the parts that most people ask me about. It'll be cold air intake, exhaust, catalytic converter removal, all that kind of fun stuff. Speaking of which, just in case you guys are ever bored to tears and were wondering, oh, by the way, Bolt Mopars, if you're still on, yes, it does have the weird misfire thing. Literally just started the read, and it's instantaneously misfiring. No, it's not. Hellcats are known for their weird and quirky data that you'll collect. I thought I had blown one up on the dyno once. Number 8 misfire counter was just going nuts. Like, well, looks like we popped one. Call the owner, let him know he's about to have to buy a motor. But absolutely not. It was that was a stock car, by the way. Let's see. Save that. testing these things. Anyway, figured I would send that shout out to local Mopars. Yeah, this one does have the goofy, and of course it wouldn't be mine if it didn't, but it's got the goofy misfire weird read counter thing going on there. Hang on just a second. Where is my parameter for my inferred catalytic converter temperature here for you guys? Just in case you're ever wondering what kind of exhaust temperatures you've got. So at idle, typically, like after everything cools off, at idle you'll see them come down to like 900 degrees. Typically at cruise, they'll get up around 1280, 1290, I guess. At acceleration, yeah, they get to 1300. Even at that, got to 1300 pretty quick. Still well within reason. Definitely not a big deal. Anyway, goofy little things like that. Let's see what we got going on here. Oh, man, this is hard to read while you're driving, especially on this road. Ruth saying, do they all have the misfire, or is that just in certain ones? No, all of them do. So, what's funny is that some of them are worse than others. And in fact, some of them will freak you straight sideways. Again, the one that I was doing, for whatever reason, it would just, and it was showing number 8 misfire, like it had crushed the straps on both plugs. I mean, it's just going nuts, but the car's running fine and no misfire counter issue. So kill the car, fire it back up, sitting there looking at it, go to, basically start a pull and add the, just drop the sweep down a little bit so it would load the car up, and I'm loading it, and everything's good. And so, yeah, it's, you'll always get misfire counts. So don't worry about that. That's noise. That's not a continuated or a continuous misfire over a long period of time. Those are just random misfires, and it just picks them up, and that's what they do. So you'll always have, some are worse than others. Hellcats are known for it. 392s, any of the NA cars are a little bit less persnickety when it comes to throwing out misfire numbers, and it's pretty easy to freak somebody out too. 4 cylinders got 7 misfires. Did I blow it up? 7 misfires, dude. When that thing's wide open throttle, it goes over 200 revs per second. Or I'm sorry, it goes about 100 revs per second. 7, even if they were legit, which they probably aren't, but even if they were legit, you wouldn't, that's, out of thousands and thousands and thousands of fires, that's not even something that would even remotely come into play. So as far as being anything serious. But yeah, again, we are basically wrapping it up for the night now. I'm going to go through and check data and basically just check it out. See what I see. Make sure nothing weird or goofy's going on. Again, just car feels healthy, car's running healthy. Typically, that's a happy, healthy Hemi. The only sound that it's making is supercharger whine and exhaust, so that's a good thing. It's dark outside, no visible signs of smoke, no sense of smoke, just general, does the car seem healthy? Does it seem to run good? And the answer to that is, yeah. Feels good underfoot, throttle response is great, so I can't really complain. Let's see, make sure I'm not forgetting anybody here. Time out. Hang on, bear with me. Tell you what, I'll be coming to the spot pretty soon. I'll be able to answer any other questions y'all might have. One thing I do like about the 2015, 2016, I think 2017 has it too. Hydraulic power steering. It can be a little bit of a, I don't know, pain in the ass if you're not used to it, but I like the stiffer feel and I like the more connected feel of the hydraulic steering versus the electric. It's funny because I was backing a car on the dyno the other day, and it was a 2018 Hellcat, and they do have the electric. They do have the electric power steering, and it's like, man, this steering feels really light. Yeah, it's going to, because it's freaking electric. Oh, crap. We got a shock leaking in my wife's Jeep. That makes sense. All right, so pulling in to the hive here. Everything's checking out, looking good. Short-term fuel trends were so nice. All right, cool. That's a done deal. Go ahead and cut it and chog it. Let's see. Make sure I'm not forgetting anybody while I'm in here. All right. Let's see. Chris saying, heading out, B. Enjoyed the chat. Looking forward to that Camaro chat. Drive safe. Thank you very much for the thumbs up. Thank you, Christian. Riff33 saying, I'm still a little upset. I got the K&N drop-in filter, which claims so and so amount of power. Yeah, believe me. Yeah, I know what you mean. Riff keeps saying, he said, I feel like if I get any aftermarket cold air intake, because it would be AFE, because it is a true cold air intake. AFE cold air intake, and it does look good. It does look good, but it is a nightmare to install. He's asking, that's where he asked about the misfires. Yes, they do. I know this sounds dumb, but can you give a shout out to my daughter, Sid? Hey, Sid, what's going on? What is happening out there? I like it. Thank you. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight, Sid. Let's see. Saying I got her a PT Cruiser for her first car, which she is not very happy with, but it was cheap, and I figured for a first car it was okay. Yeah, they're awesome for a first car. What are you talking about? PT Cruiser is actually a really cool car. And that car, just as a kind of again, a bit of a sidebar on the PT Cruiser, if I don't think we need these with these new lights I put in the garage, it turns this thing into daylight. The PT Cruiser does retro better than any car. It basically started, or was a part of that era where everybody was really trying to engineer retro into their cars. And so you had like the Camaro, the Chevrolet SS, that truck thing, which was cool. You had the, whatever their PT Cruiser clone is, but the PT Cruiser is actually a pretty cool car. It's got that retro vibe to it, and you can haul a lot of crap in a PT Cruiser, and they're awesome if you go to the beach a lot. TU saying, hey, there he is. TU saying, just checking in, B. Have a great week, brother. You do the same. Riff saying it has a really bad vibration at idle. I'm guessing it's either a leak in the manifold or a bad engine mount. Take a look at the engine mount and then immediately take a look for vacuum leaks. HHR, which one? Maybe it was the HHR that was that PT Cruiser clone, which is funny because you see that thing on the street, and if like from 50 feet away, you're not going to be able to tell the difference on that. But all right, guys. Well, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to go through some of this data, but hopefully you guys had fun. Maybe learned something along the way, or at least validated stuff you might have already known. Let's see. I'll get to the last few questions, and then I have got to bounce. Say, Michael's asking. Oh, wait. Riff saying, I think they're meant to look like old panel vans. Yes, they do. Yes, they are, actually. And they work great at that, by the way. Michael's saying, do the manual transmission 5.7 Hemis have the same timing chain and valve train issues as the automatics do? No, they don't. At least not near as much. So that has a lot more to do with the MDS lifters than anything else. Manual transmission cars don't have that. Neither do the Hellcats. Now, there is some debate as far as how big of an issue that is. And I would say, you know, it affects 1 to 2% of the cars that are out there. And is it a big deal? I don't know that it is. I mean, my truck got hit with it, and, you know, had that truck still been in warranty or had been out of warranty, it'd have been a huge problem. But Dodge took care of it. So, I mean, damn, no harm, no foul. And really what I'm understanding that whole situation to be is just a bad set of lifters, bad bearings, I should say, in those lifters. You know, it's either metallurgy or oiling issues or what have you. I've heard guys also say that they've had lifters fail on the non-MDS lifter lobes. And I'm going, well, you know, it kind of blows that out of the water. But, you know, like I say, for the most part, you know, you're safer with a manual when it comes to those types of issues, but I don't know. It's just like anything. I mean, these things are mechanical, and if they've been beaten on or let to idle for a long, long time, you know, anything can happen at that point. Riff saying, okay, bro, hope you have a great night. I will be on next time you stream. I will be going to the track this Wednesday. I'll let you know how I do. Please do. And again, the rest of you guys, thank y'all so very much for hanging out with me. Y'all have a great one. That's a wrap. Adios.